As I was reading the book, it struck me that the subtitle of this book almost could have been "Mark Cuban was wrong."
Maybe I should switch it.
It's not too late.
I like that subtitle.
I counted, and you brought that up 6 more times in the book.
Just wanted to make sure people didn't miss it.
So what is it like to pitch your dream on Shark Tank, get rejected on national TV in front of 8 million people, and then turn that failure into a company that Amazon later buys for more than $1 billion? Our guest today did just that. Jamie Siminoff is a serial inventor and the founder of Ring, the home security technology company, and he documents this messy, high-stakes, and ultimately inspirational startup journey in his new book, which is out November 10th. It's called Ding Dong: How Ring Went from Shark Tank Reject to Everyone's Front Door. Jamie, it's great to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me, Todd.
Well, Jamie, there's also more to your story. You're recently back at Amazon. You recently rejoined as a VP to lead Ring and the rest of the company's home security businesses. But I want to start with the book before we get to some of the stuff that you're working on now. This is told from your perspective, but it's incredibly unvarnished. You're really tough on yourself at times. You write about sending a nasty email to a venture capitalist where you called investors whores. You openly admit that your own aluminum design was, the quote, genius decision that sabotaged the first doorbot as Ring was originally known. I could go on. There's more, but people should read the book. Why did you decide to write this book? And why were you so brutally honest about your missteps? And what did you hope people would take away from your own entrepreneurial journey?
There was definitely like a bunch of things, but part of it, to just go to your unvarnished side, is that really is our culture at Ring and always has been. It's just kind of like it's like sort of a just do it mentality. And I think you see it in the book, which is like, we just kind of call the balls as we see them. And part of doing the book was like almost a little bit of like therapeutic, of just going back and looking at this stuff. And some of it is funny. I mean, that email to the investor is it's like one of those moments where like it worked out, so I'm kind of, I guess I'm okay that I did it. But like, did I have to do that? No. Was I kind of right in what I said? Yeah. Should it have been put in a drawer and never released? 100%. Like, so it's like, but that was kind of the fun of doing the book, is like you go through this stuff and you see what kind of made Ring to where it was. And also like what my best traits, my most powerful traits, the things that sort of make me successful, are also the worst ones and the ones that sort of hurt me the most. And I'm just kind of lucky that, I guess, on the balance, I was more successful than less successful with them.
You obviously had a successful exit in the end, which we can talk about. I have to tell you, just talking to folks around the office, the name of the book is an instant hit. Ding Dong. How'd you come up with that?
I mean, the book almost had to be written just so you could call a book Ding Dong. We actually played with a lot of titles, like I think like a lot of people do that are writing books. And I kept coming back to Ding Dong. It felt right. I mean, obviously it's the double entendre of like, the doorbell, we, are now on everyone's front door kind of thing, like with Ring. But also when you read it, you realize like a little bit like I'm a ding dong. Like, I mean, there's things that I do where you just sort of like, it's a bit of like what you would call someone a ding dong for. And so it kind of fits. It's a fun, and it's fun to be a little bit self-deprecating of this story. I think a lot of times too many people, when they become successful, forget like how things actually were. And so I do hope, and I think you see it, that this is the real story of it. Like I didn't pull any punches on myself.
I think that's what makes it work. There's no shortage of humility. And I got to say, the other thing that really made it work for me is it is a story. I mean, you are telling the chronological tale, the ups and downs. There's, a conflict and resolution. I mean, it is a classic narrative arc. And I was hooked, Jamie. I read this thing in 3 days.
I am a product person. And so with whether it's a Ring doorbell or a camera, that we're coming out with, but the book is a product also. And so I wanted it, if I was going to do something, I wanted it to be great. I think the story allowed that. Like it's probably part of my personality is like, I just create a lot of wake, and that made it very fun because you could see all this, like kind of the hijinks, the craziness, the hiring people off like Craigslist. I mean, it's like kind of like, it's just nonstop that we kept just kind of pushing things.
Yeah, garbage bags on the roof at your,
Duct tape and
headquarters.
garbage bags on the roof. I mean, but it is like, I think too often we overcomplicate things. And I think that's where like there's good lessons in the book. I tried not to make it a, like here's what to do to become successful book. But I do think like one thing we've been doing more and more is overcomplicating everything. And like if the roof's leaking, like why don't you just put a trash bag on top of it? Like it fixes it. Like it turns out like, now, is it the best fix? I don't know. But like if you need to work in the office and it's leaking, put the trash bag on it. Like you can fix it.
So here's my question. When you have the Ring or the Amazon booth at CES or whatever shows you're going to these days, are you still sending somebody to the Mac store, to the Apple store, to buy Macs that will be returned after the show?
So no, I stopped doing my Mac rental program. Stopped probably but not that long ago. I would say probably like just before we sold to Amazon was the last time we did the. For those that haven't read the book yet, we would buy Macs at an Apple store and then return them, which to be fair, they had a 5% restocking fee, which I figured if Apple built that in, they must be thinking that it's like a rental. I mean, they're charging me for the rental. That must be their cost. And so therefore, like it's a fair exchange. It's a fair contract.
Very scrappy. I could see, Jeff, you tell the story of Jeff Bezos touring your headquarters in Santa Monica. And he says that you should buy the headquarters, including the walls where you've punched through the plaster. But you mentioned the landlord won't sell.
He won't sell. And it really was one of the most human, and we put it in there that like, cause it wasn't Jeff saying it like, you should just like, we should just buy things. It was one of the most human moments just of anyone, not just Jeff, but like of anyone, where he just was like, Jamie, this really is a special place. And like, you should like, it's like a place you should like have, like, you should just like, it's like a museum or like anything special. And it's like, it was such a generous, kind, compassionate way of talking about it. And yes, the landlord is a very nice guy. He wants to, I guess, pass it down to his kids. And so it's a tiny little building too. It's not some giant, like it's not some big corporate headquarters. It's like a tiny little building in Santa Monica, and just will not sell it to me. So
the story at the end of the book, and I don't want to, give a big spoiler here, but you do sell to Amazon at the end.
I do. Yeah. So, for those that don't know, I did sell to Amazon.
Yes. But before that happened, there was a huge obstacle that you faced in the form of some significant litigation with ADT, the home security giant. Jamie, I didn't know that story coming into the book. I don't think it really got the attention at the time that it probably deserved based on the disruption that it caused in your business. And in some ways, you caused that by a kind of impetuous phone call that you had with an ADT rep after they closed down the subsidiary of theirs that was one of your partners. And I don't need to tell the whole story, but like, would you have sold to Amazon if not for that lawsuit with ADT forcing your hand and making you realize I got to get out of this thing?
I'll never know. I would say it's pretty clear that we came out of that pretty handicapped, or it was a pretty, like, the company was it was growing, but like that was a very big hit that it took. And so definitely the Amazon, acquisition was like, I felt like the canary in the coal mine, like the canary had died in the test. And so like we were like that, selling to Amazon was the right thing because this balance sheet issue. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting looking back, because obviously in the moment, I of course didn't think I caused it. I mean, I felt like I was doing what I was doing, and I was out there with my mission and my stuff. And the more I looked back at it, the more I realized, like, my guess is it never would have happened had I not been, kind of really like an asshole about it. And so it is like, it's very hard. Like that's a pill that's hard to swallow for me. Like I like it's hard. It's hard to even talk about, because I did it. Like, and I think, and by the way, in business, like I made thousands of decisions, and thousands of decisions I still do. And you're going to get some wrong. And this one was just one that I think I really got wrong. And, and it affected us. And I guess I'm lucky, honestly, I'm lucky that looking back, I mean, it could have affected us way more. Like it was like, in some ways it was a lucky break that we got out of it. in the end for the penalty that we had. Like, it could have been worse.
I think it is a good example of perseverance. I mean, there's so much perseverance throughout this book. And the fundamental perseverance, though, that's kind of canonical to the Ring story, to the Doorbot story, is, of course, Shark Tank and that rejection. So I want to get into that when we come back. You're listening to GeekWire, and we'll be right back. Welcome back. I'm speaking this week with Jamie Siminoff. He is the founder of Ring. He's a vice president at Amazon these days, and his new book is out November 10th. It's called Ding Dong: How Ring Went from Shark Tank Reject to Everyone's Front Door. So, Jamie, let's talk about the first part of that subtitle. You know,
Yes.
Here you had these 5 sharks who all passed, with the exception of Mr. Wonderful, Kevin O'Leary, who came up with one of his crazy royalty deals. But I want to mention one person in particular, because this book has a ton of fun celebrity cameos. There's Shaq going to a Best Buy store. There's a chance meeting with Richard Branson in an elevator that didn't really come to fruition until years later. I mean, it's some fascinating stuff. But the celebrity who gets mentioned most in this book is Mark Cuban. And there was something that he said to you during your original Shark Tank pitch for Doorbot that clearly touched a nerve with you. He said, quote, "When I jump in, I've got to add enough value that this company worth $7 million could be worth $80 million, $90 million. I just don't see that progression. And for that reason, I'm out." That's my catchphrase around the house, by the way. And for that reason, I'm out. As I was reading the book, it struck me that the subtitle of this book almost could have been "Mark Cuban was wrong."
Maybe I should switch it.
It's not too late.
I like that subtitle.
I counted, and you brought that up 6 more times in the book.
Just wanted to make sure people didn't miss it. I wanted to make sure they didn't miss it.
So obviously you've been vindicated, but how much did that rejection and specifically his words fuel you over the years?
So they certainly, listen, over the years, it definitely, it's been fun because, when things age poorly like that, it's always fun. When you're told something like that, yeah, of course it's great. Like, it was like he was off by a magnitude, and that's awesome. But what's amazing, and this is what was fun about going back in the book, is when we were launching, Doorbot and then Ring, I would go to parties. My wife and I go to a party and we meet someone, and they have a couple, and what do you do? And I'd say, "Oh, I make doorbells." And they'd start laughing because they thought it was funny. They thought it was like literally I was joking with them. My wife would like kick me and be like, "Stop it." Stop. But I'm like, but it was so, the doorbell was so ridiculous. To defend Mark is the idea that a doorbell could be the largest home security company in the world is it was ridiculous, which is, by the way, if I found anything in life, is the things that are ridiculous are the things that break out. But that was, I think so. So I guess, to be fair to him, and by the way, he, having now been a shark, the person comes on, you don't know anything, they pitch, you have to give them a quick opinion. But I had really thought Mark was going to invest. He went out so quickly when we were pitching, and I for sure thought he was going to invest. And I was it probably was a second, but literally my brain exploded when he said that statement. My entire body died for I stopped living for a second, for sure.
It's amazing. I went back and watched the video right before we started talking here today. You can see the blood draining out of your face. He was the tech guy. Why would he not invest in this? But you explain it and you give it good context in the book. He had just made some record-setting deal, literally the segment before. You are pretty fair to him, I have to say.
Because I think, and you have to be. It's it is a show. He only had a few minutes. Up until that point at Shark Tank, the deals above $100,000 were crazy. They weren't happening. All of a sudden, the same day, the person who films right before me does $2 million that Mark puts in, which is for that time was insane. And then the next thing that comes in is $700,000. So it was I do think he was nuked when I came in. I don't think I stood a chance no matter what. He also didn't, he had no context. And by the way, it was Doorbot I was pitching. It didn't have motion detection. It didn't have, so you couldn't see exactly where the product was going. And I think, it's fun to look back. It shows that my timing was so lucky with how I launched, because it was right at that moment where people could kind of start to see this was something that would be working. but before they could see it. So like, yeah, I wasn't too late and I wasn't too early. Like I was like looking back, I like could not have hit it more, more accurately. And again, I'll call that luck. Like I'm not that smart.
Well, you alluded to this, but you realized at some point along the way that Ring, or Doorbot, but eventually Ring, wasn't really a doorbell company. It was a home security company. And your wife actually helped you realize this when she said how much safer it made her feel. And the mission is to make neighborhoods safer. And to me, this is one of the most interesting parts of the book, and that is mission. How did that realization change your path? And what can other founders learn from reframing their own product and companies in that kind of way?
Mission really is everything. Like it does everything for you. The hardest part of a business is what you say no to. It's not what you say yes to, it's what you say no to. And when you have a strong mission, it allows you to focus on the things that matter to that mission. Even hiring, like it's amazing. Like you can hire better people when you have a mission to do something that's, again, I always say you don't have to be Gandhi, you don't have to like save the world, but to do something that's better for society. Like you're not just like, we're going to make money. Like when I sit with a founder and they're saying like, we're going to go from here to here, we're just going to make money. It's maybe but sometimes it works out for them, but if it doesn't work out, they're a total failure because their only success factor was money. At Ring, if we had failed, I could still sit here today and say we tried to make neighborhoods safer. Like at least we were successful at trying something. And so that's where I think mission is just so powerful. And I accidentally fell into it. And it is my wife that helped us get there because she said, this makes me feel safer at home. And it was like, wow, there's a hole there's a missing part of home security where people are not building products around what could change the way we actually secure homes based on new technologies coming out.
So you describe yourself in the book, and it's clear that you are first and foremost an inventor. And in fact, over the years, your title was always like chief inventor. Have I got that right?
It still is. I mean,
yeah.
I still call myself, like, it's funny you said like Amazon VP. I'm like, that's so funny. I'm like, maybe I'm an Amazon VP. I don't know. It's probably on some paperwork, but I'm the chief inventor. I just like, that's my title. I'm an inventor. That's it. That's who I am.
It was fun hearing the early stories of things like the air conditioning unit that you made when you were living in New Jersey. And that was kind of fun. I really liked that human element of the book. You, though, ended up leading this company in kind of a MacGyver way as well. I mean, you talk about that, MacGyvering the products, but you were kind of a MacGyver entrepreneur overall, if folks will forgive that 1980s television reference. You had lawsuits, production problems. Looking back, it struck me, other people in your position would have brought in a CEO to run the business side so they could have focused on the technology. Did you ever consider that?
We grew so fast. It was like, that's the other thing about growing fast that I think people miss. When you go from 3 million to when we hit revenue, we went from 3 million, 30 million, 170, 480, then $1 billion. When you do that, the CEO of a $30 million company is different than the CEO of a $170 million company, is different than the CEO of a $480 million company. And so it's really hard to like hire the team to run a business when the business is a different business every few months. And you can do it, but it's really, really tough. So I think that was part of it. And the other part was what made us successful on the good side of me being an inventor is that I invented, to your point, invention was not just the product, it was everything we did.
Right.
From how we fixed the leak on the roof to how we got product out to how we I was inventing everywhere. And I think that's something that when people say they're an inventor, I think that's something that they miss is like, invention is not just product, invention is everything, it's the process. And I think you can invent everywhere. And it's what we've continued to do. And I love fixing problems. And that's like, again, if you boil down what an inventor is, anything I see that's broken, like I'm fixing it. Like I can't help myself.
Well, it was striking when you wrote that you even applied that to your dad's cancer diagnosis, your dad, Bruce. And, it struck me as you were writing about him, he really gave you that sense of resourcefulness and perseverance. And yet he wasn't nearly as ambitious as you were in terms of ownership. He's since passed away, but I'm curious, what do you think he would think about where you are right now in your career? And like, what advice would he be giving you? And what would he be telling you to do differently?
I mean, he'd be like, James, you gotta slow down, James. Don't do that. Like my dad was very conservative. I mean, he was a great man, but definitely more of a conservative kind of like step-by-step approach. And he was ready, aim, fire, and I'm like a fire, maybe aim, kind of person, then fire again. I mean, so it's just like we're just very different like that. But he did love my hijinks, and my brother told me lots of stories afterwards about that. So
we talked about the messaging and the mission, and it strikes me this book is also really interesting from a marketing standpoint. I was fascinated by the approach that you and one of your colleagues took to buying television ads.
Micah, my secret weapon.
Micah, yes.
What I think is great about the book, hopefully, is that it allows them to take lessons that they can apply themselves, but not prescriptive advice. Like, it's not a book about advice. Like, I'm not saying like this is what you should do, but I think it does give you behind the scenes of a lot of the decision making that went in, how you could apply it to your life. Like, I just hope it gives, like, I'd love to hear in 5 years that someone says like, I read this and it inspired me to do X, and that made it better.
And that example with the TV ads, you guys looked at the way that people normally buy TV ads and the things that they prioritize when they're buying those ads and the certainty that they want when they're buying those ads. And you went, why? What does it matter? And you took a totally different approach. And to me, that's the kind of lesson that I took away from the book. That's universally applicable. Like, to ask yourself truly, why is the industry doing it this way? And why should I do it that way?
Ads, like whatever you're doing, I don't care if you're in a non-for-profit or whatever, like, why are you doing something? Why are you spending money on this? Why? And get to the point where you get to the basis, like the ground level, the metal of it. And that's when you're in the right place. Like, just keep breaking things down until you get to that core, because over time things build up. And, I bet you a lot of those companies that buy TV ads today for the more expensive stuff, they probably started like we did, but over time someone did this and then that, and then it became the process, and then it's like how we do it. And then no one ever asks why. You're 10 people later and no one asks why. And so it is our job to keep asking why. I think it's like a good thing.
I don't know if I would have wanted to have worked for you. That's one of my takeaways from the book. You're a little all over the place, and you're very hard charging, like a lot of founders. You're very hard charging, and it can be hard for people in the employee roles to keep up with that. Did you have any, I don't know, regrets, maybe not the right word, but did you have any second thoughts in writing this book or reflecting on the growth of Ring about your own management style?
I think the management style, no, because my point with management style is that there's been lots of successful people out there that have done it in different ways. And this is my way. And I think management style should be who you are. And by the way, and I also think and we say it in the book, like, there's people that left Ring that went on to be super successful that were not successful at Ring. It's about like a key finding the right lock. It's not, so just because someone, like, and to your point, like, there's lots of people that wouldn't want to work with me, and I don't blame them. And then there's lots of people that love working with me because they like the challenge. Like, that's like they're the people that want to fight for that challenge every day, and they like being challenged. They like that. And so, but that, to me, that's real company culture. Like, a real culture is something that not everyone feels, call it, that it like matches them. And so now, I think then sometimes people say like, oh, like, uncomfortable or brutal or whatever. It's not like, you can still be respectful to humans. You can still have very high EQ and care about people. Like, everybody I've ever fired, I've cared. I deeply care. I hate what they have to go home and talk to their spouse about. Like, it crushes me.
And it crushes you so much that oftentimes you would bring them back within a day.
Those are the people that I just say I'd fire. But like, the actual people that I'd like truly exit, even if I felt it was the right decision for the business, or even if I felt like they weren't doing their job, like if I was mad that they weren't doing their job, I still felt on a human level like a massive amount of empathy for them. And so I think you can still have, like, two things can coexist at the same time. You can have a ton of empathy and care about people and also be a hard charger. And hopefully it comes through, because I do think that's kind of where I am now. Still, by the way, you still might not want to work with me. But I do hope that all the people around me, and I think they do, would say, yeah, hard, but also like very like, has a heart and cares. You want to be upfront with that. I would try to be upfront with people and say, here's how it is here. Like if that doesn't sound good to you, but our mission, we want to make neighborhoods safer. If you don't believe that's what we're doing, that's you have the right to your opinion. Everyone has a right to their opinion. I just wouldn't want to work at a place where I don't believe in the mission where everyone's believing. Like that just wouldn't be fun for me.
All right. So the book takes us up to the Amazon acquisition and not much beyond, actually. But there has been, to quote the great Paul Harvey, the rest of the story. So let's get into that when we come back. You're listening to GeekWire. We'll be right back. Welcome back. It's Todd Bishop. I'm catching up this week with Jamie Siminoff. He is the vice president at Amazon who oversees the Ring business and the company's security technology business. He is the founder of Ring originally. And Jamie, we last talked on the GeekWire Summit. I mean, we've talked in between, but like in this kind of setting on the GeekWire Summit stage, it was either 2018 or 2019, one of the most popular GeekWire Summit sessions ever, I have to say.
Well, I appreciate that. I think it was 2018. I think it was right after we had just sold.
So you've left Amazon and now come back to Amazon. And I'm curious, how is this second tour different for you?
The thing that you get from leaving and coming back, which is such a luxury, it's like such a lucky thing to have, to be able to do, is the clarity of everything. You read the book, even like you go through like those years, and then it was 5 years, by the way, at Amazon. It wasn't like I just like got to Amazon and like left. I mean, it was 5 years there, and we almost 10x the revenue while we were there, and took it profitable and built this very, very big division even at Amazon. I kind of burned myself out. And then when I left, I got to kind of like, I got to really see like clearly like everything we did, what we did wrong, what we did right. And so coming back, I feel like I have just like a newfound clarity for the business. And I do feel like this is the best I've been at executing in it, maybe ever in the business, because, when it was growing, you had to kind of learn as you went, which means you were making more mistakes. And I really was able to come back with a different perspective. And I think I'm as effective as I've ever been in my life.
So I have to tell you, being GeekWire here in Seattle and covering Amazon as closely as we do, we know Amazon employees, and I get occasionally anonymous emails from Amazon employees, including some in your division. And I've heard from some employees who say that your return has been exciting and energizing. And I've heard from others who describe it as disruptive, like you brought back the original mission statement of making neighborhoods safer, and they see it in part as a shift from where they were headed. And I could tell they're not super happy about you being back for that reason. What's your message to people inside the company who are struggling with your return and the pace of the change that you've brought?
I think there is a direction and there's leadership, and Amazon has entrusted me again to do this. Amazon, by the way, bought the business with the mission to make neighborhoods safer. I think things did change a little bit as they should. Like when a new leader comes in, like for sure, like they should put their mark on it. That's fine. But I have my direction that I think we can go in. I am very convicted on the impact that we can have with Ring over the next, it's funny. I used to always say like 5, 10, 20 years, because I actually think very long term. But what's crazy now is with AI, I like all those timelines are collapsing on themselves. And so it's like in the next 12 months, I can't even imagine what we're going to be able to accomplish. And I'm so excited for it. So I just think I'm really excited for what we are accomplishing so far, what we came out with. I mean, we have this search party launching for dogs. We announced it. It's now like sort of it's going to start to roll out very shortly. The fact that, if a dog gets lost in a neighborhood and now we can find it, that's unbelievable. Like, it's like the stuff we're going to be doing is just, it's like from a human impact side, it's just unbelievable. So I am so excited for that.
Yeah, for people who haven't followed this, the mission over the years went more toward keeping people close to what's important to them. And as you brought it back, it's making neighborhoods safer. This search party is super interesting. You announced it a couple months ago, and it's really getting back to that vision of, and this is how the name Ring came about, like a ring around your home, a ring around your property, and then a ring around the neighborhood. And that's the whole idea, is that these things are networked. And if people opt in, they're able to collaborate in ways that they might not have otherwise.
That's 100% correct. And if you look, like, AI really unlocked a level of that mission that I never thought would be possible within any sort of time frame that I could imagine. I mean, when we came up with the mission to make neighborhoods safer, obviously we understand computers and neural networks and computer vision and all these things, but what's happened with agentic AI and the LLMs is a shift that's so big. Like the dog search party, you could never have built that and rolled it out in a financially reasonable way 2 years ago. Like, it just wouldn't even close. Like, it would have been I don't even know, billions of dollars, whatever. It would have been ridiculous. And now you can do it, and it still costs us money. It's not free, but it's financially reasonable now to go through a neighborhood and find a dog when it's missing.
Is that because of the way the AI is implemented at the application layer, or is that because of the efficiencies that you're seeing in the software development?
So the non-engineering answer to me that I would give is that AI, the fact is that it understands more like a human, allows you to do things that are just completely different and more efficient than, a neural network. Like, before, when you were doing algorithms was what basically AI was, call it 5 years ago. You had to program that. So you'd have to say, like, if this, then this, if this, then this, if this, like, whereas like the current AI kind of understands. It has, like, you can see, like, when you type in, you can kind of tell it things, and it'll kind of, like, you can prod it, you can get it, you can yell at it, and it'll come back with a better answer because it, like, understands it. Like, it understands more. And I think that's where we can do things now, even like watching cameras with AI. It just was too hard to train things before. You could do it, but it was so much more expensive. And now it's like just that much easier, which means it's more attainable for things like a dog search party in a neighborhood.
Thinking about the challenges that you encountered in the very early days of Doorbot and Ring and all that stuff, man, I can only imagine what Jamie Siminoff of, it's actually only been about 12 years, right? 12 years ago, would have done with the technology and the tools that you have today.
Well, that's what I'm doing today. That's like,
yeah.
That's part of why I wanted to come back, was that all of a sudden, again, when I did decide, and I was burnt out, and I did need some, like, a break. I just did. I could feel myself not being the most impactful that I could be, and I didn't want to do that. But that was also pre, like, this AI. Like, it was pre seeing what this stuff could do. And now, and that's right. It's like the next every month now, the things we're launching and can think of, like, the time has been so compressed. I mean, what used to be a 2-year feature could be a 1-month feature. It's unbelievable.
My guess is that it's more about the software and the service now than it is about the hardware, or at least more about that now than it was at the beginning.
Yes, but, like, hardware is now speeding up because of the software. Remember, like, hardware is kind of a derivative of software, like part of how you lay out a PCB board. Well, if you have something that can lay it out faster, that pulls in that timeline. And so you're getting to this point where there are physical constraints. I mean, you still have to shoot plastic and cut tools, and there are things you have to do physically, but we're also, like, we're massively decreasing the time from, like, when we think of a product to when the physical product ships. That's gone way down. Obviously with software, we're seeing there's stuff that would have taken 4 months that takes 4 people 2 days now. It's not everything, of course. Like, we're still, like, early innings, but we're already seeing, we are shipping features in days that might have taken months or years before, or might never have come out because they would have been behind something. Like, it would have just been the feature that never sort of got, it's maybe a smaller feature that impacts only a select group of neighbors that have a special need for some sort of thing that kind of never really got out, but, like, would be, but it's a great feature for the people that need it.
One thing that's come up just recently, and I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you this, but I am curious, how are Amazon's layoffs affecting your division?
I mean, to the EQ thing I talked about, like, I don't like to see a single everyone had to go home to their spouse or their whatever, their family, their friends, and tell them what happened. And it's a huge impact on humans. Like, so I am just, like, extremely the empathy I have for that is massive. I think Andy talked about it, and and so like we just kind of keep our then heads down and keep going. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely like, listen, I don't like to see anybody affected by these things, and I think Amazon's a great company at taking care of people through that.
So just to get back a little bit to the ring of security, people are concerned about the balance of privacy, and Ring's work with police officers and law enforcement. And your return actually has raised some concerns along those lines as well, because I know you've reinstituted some of those partnerships and maybe more of that focus in general. How do you balance those two things, privacy and protection, when you talk about neighbors, as you refer to Ring's customers?
Yes, we could call our customers neighbors. I think you don't balance it. You give 100% control to and I'm going to say the word customers here because I don't even want anyone to misunderstand what I'm saying. You give 100% control to your customers. It is their data. They control it. That's it. Like, it's just clear. Now, with that, you can do things that help them to work with other constituents, like, public authorities. And so I think there are ways to do it that you can assist, but you're giving them the control. You're giving them the decision. You're giving them 100% control. And I do think we are doing that, and I'm proud of that. And so that's how you have to do it. And you have to keep your customers' trust. And not only keep it, you have to deliver on it, because without that, like, you don't have customers. And again, I'll go back to neighbors now, but I just don't want people confusing what I'm saying. But yes, like, we have to take care of our neighbors, because that's in the end, that's what we're here for.
Last thing here. This is, I believe, what should be the subject of your next book. So let me ask you this question. You write about always being driven to build things, not just products, but communities and ideas. And I've been fascinated to follow and read all the stories about your latest project. It's in LaBelle, Missouri. You bought a farm. This was an outgrowth of Shark Tank as well, because it was the home base of one of the investments you made when you returned as a shark. You're helping to revitalize the town. What drew you to LaBelle, Missouri, and what does that experience say about the kind of inventor you still want to be?
So I think it's like, what drew me there was I went to a place that, like any invention, right? Like, you could see there was a foundation of beauty there. There was like this, there was a nuggets of incredibleness. Like, the people there are amazing, and the place is beautiful. Like, the scenery is beautiful, but the town was, I mean, crumbling, I think, would be like, and there's people that live there, but like, it was crumbling. I mean, like, literally buildings falling in on themselves, and just everything vacant. And it was really sad. And it was the first experience I had where I saw that firsthand, in terms of where I was actually part of it, where I like talked to I was there, not just driving through. And I saw the impact it had. The impact it has on kids, and the sidewalks all messed up, and the streets. And so I bought a little farm out there and started to fix that up. And then we kind of started fixing the sidewalks up, and then started fixing the streets up, and then took a building that was broken and took it down and cleaned it up and put a beautiful little coffee shop there that no one thought would work. And it became a great little community center that people go to. It's actually successful. And a woman who never graduated 8th grade is a farmer's wife who runs it, and has been incredibly successful. Probably one of the greatest marketers I've ever met. And you see her on Facebook, and she's incredible. And then we kind of rebuilt. So and then a doctor came in and put his office then in town, because he could feel the town was doing better. And like, so it's like, and people started fixing up their properties, and it's really become this great sort of thing of just, giving, with my inventor, to your question of like an inventor, like, the hardest invention you can do is changing people's perspective. Like to do that, like, it's not just money. I mean, money was needed there, but it was really like, how do you help them to see what they have? And that was a real invention and like, I'd even call it leadership of how to do that. And it's been 7 years now that we've been doing this. I think it's like a 20-year project to really fully get the town where you'd want it to be. And the other thing was, I wanted to make sure that it was a town that the people that were there still lived there and felt like it was still their town. Like, I didn't want it to be a amusement park or a luxury 5-star hotel is there, and that's what brings people there. Like, I wanted it to be a place that in some ways, I don't want people to visit it, because it's not supposed to be a place. It's supposed to be a town where people live and their kids grow up and they walk around the streets, and like, where they like have neighbors, and like, it's supposed to be real. And that's is one of the things I'm the most proud of. It's the most tangible thing I've been able to do in a long time.
Hey, Jamie, thank you so much for taking the time. You can tell I really enjoyed the book, and it's fun to chat with you.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Jamie Siminoff is the founder of Ring. He's a vice president at Amazon, and his new book, out November 10th, is called Ding Dong: How Ring Went from Shark Tank Reject to Everyone's Front Door. Thanks for listening, everybody. I'm GeekWire co-founder Todd Bishop. We'll be back next week with a new episode of the GeekWire podcast.